Hello and welcome to a Cloud Developer channel. Today's video is about PowerShell logging. The specific items I'm going to cover today is how to create a logging function that can be used in your PowerShell scripts, how to pass basic parameters to that function, how do we obtain the date information for the logs to be able to see when the actual code was or the script was executed. We're going to cover the topic of how to obtain the information about who is invoking the actual logging function. And this is very useful in a scenario where you need to know exactly the script that was actually executing the particular log operation, as well as the line number for troubleshooting purposes. And then we're going to see the output that is going to generate. So let's go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my projects folder, and I'll just create a folder called logging. And I am going to go ahead and also use a Visual Studio Code Editor to be able to do my sample project. So I'll go ahead and create a new file, and I'll call this logging PS1. Visual Studio Code specifically actually will know that this is a PowerShell script and is going to go ahead and initiate a terminal session. Now I do actually have an extension for PowerShell installed, so that's why it's able to actually do that for me. So I'm going to go ahead and close this for now. And what I'm going to do is initially I'm going to go ahead and create a function that is going to be used for me to include in my other scripts. And in later videos I will show you how to actually create a logging module to be able to consume it as an actual PowerShell module that you can then deploy to your servers or your computers to be able to use in your scripts. So first I'm going to start off with creating a function, and that's going to be write to file, or we can call it log to file. I'm not going to specify any parameters here, and actually I'm going to go ahead and create a param statement right here, and this is where we're going to define the different type of arguments that we want to be able to take in. There are two specific arguments that I want to be able to pass into this function, and that is going to be the actual message that the user wants to pass in, and we're going to call this message. However, I also want to make sure that somebody actually always provides that message, so we're going to specify some mandatory attributes on this parameter. So and it's done like this. So basically this forces PowerShell to do validation when somebody invokes this call. The next parameter I'm going to specify here is actually not a parameter, but it's a type of an argument that I'm expecting this to be, and this is going to be a string. And then the actual variable that I want to be able to reference this argument as. So in this case it's going to be message. And then another parameter that I want to be able to take in is the type of a message, and this is useful when we want to be able to allow the user to specify if this is going to be an informational type of a message or a warning, and then we can output to the console with different colors if we wanted to. So in this case, I actually don't want to specify that it's going to be a mandatory parameter, but I do want to use something that's called the validation set. And what this actually allows you to do, validate set actually. And what this allows you to do is actually specify the type of options that should be available through this, and you'll see how it's actually used. So in this case I'll say I want to have info, warning, and error, and this is going to be actually a string as well, and I'm going to specify this as message type, or just type in this case. So this is enough for me to be able to ask the user for the kind of information they want to be able to log. So in this case, if I actually try to write something to the output, so let's say I'm going to output this actual message that the user provided, I can do something like this, message, and then type. If I go ahead and save this and actually go ahead and import this file, it doesn't do anything because I need to actually now be able to call the log to file function, and let's go ahead and do that. And the parameters that are available here is message, so I'll say test message, and then I'll specify type. So in here, if I actually press space and press tab, it actually uses the validation set as the actual values that I have specified. So I'll have error, info, and warning available to me. So I can go ahead and just specify info in here, and I'll go ahead and press enter. And you can see that actually put in the information for me. So in this case, this was test message and of type info. So I have the basics in here, and what I want to be able to do now is actually want to start doing things like being able to find out what is the date of the message that's being written out. So what I want to be able to do here is create a variable called date, and I'll say get date. And I want to be able to actually use a specific format. So in this case, I'll just specify format in G, and this will actually give me the full string of the date. So I can go ahead and actually write this out right here. And let me put this in quotes like this, and just make it a little bit better formatted in this case. And if I go ahead and actually import this again and log to file, message, test, type, info, you can see that now I'm actually getting the information about the actual date timestamp, the actual message, as well as the type of a message it is. So actually in this case, what I want to be able to do is I'll go ahead and change the order of these so it actually makes a little bit more sense. And to help me test this easier, I'm going to go ahead and actually put this call here. This way I don't have to actually import the file every time and try to run the function. So if I actually import it now, you can see that it automatically ran that function, and we can see the output of this. Now this is good information to have. However, what if I want to be able to specify the actual or obtain the information about what function specifically invokes this particular logging? And this is helpful when you have to do a lot of logging in your script, because you don't want to have to constantly pass in as part of your message the specific script function that you're calling in the specific script file, and because it basically makes it harder for you to be able to have to maintain your code. It would be nicer if you could just simply import a function and then call that function and have that function be able to obtain that information for you and be able to put it in a logging file. So this is going to be a bit of an involved process, because we need to obtain what's called a call stack. So, and I have a script that I've actually written that I use for other PowerShell type of related scripts that I use myself, and I'll show you what that script does. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually create something that's called a stack variable, and that variable is basically an array of objects that we're going to be able to keep about the actual functions that are being invoked and the sequence. A call stack is essentially a sequence of events that are happening within your scripts, and it will be able to give you the information that we're looking for in this particular case. So the stack is going to be one variable. The other variable that I'm going to go ahead and create is line, because I would like to know what line number it actually was executing. Another variable is going to be called trace, and this trace variable is the one that's actually going to contain the information about the actual call stack. So to do this, to obtain this information, there's a function in PowerShell called get ps call stack. And as soon as you run this, it basically will calculate exactly the time that this login function was actually invoked, and return you the entire call stack chain, or every single script and a sequence of function calls that was required in order to get you to this point. So now this trace variable will contain that information. And the next step we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually do a for each statement here. And what we want to be able to do is actually what's called walk the call stack to be able to build the actual list of all the different functions and script names that were executed in this case. So we're going to do a for each. We're going to populate each frame into the frame variable, and we're going to actually iterate over all of the call stack values inside of the trace variable itself. So let's go ahead and do this. And then the next item is an actual frame name. So in this case, this is going to be the actual command. So that's being executed, whether it's a function or actual script. So it's going to be frame command. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the actual stack variable, and we're going to do plus equals, which actually will basically add to this stack variable array for us. So, and I'll do frame name, and this will basically generate an array or a list of all of those functions that were executed. So in this case, we now have a complete array of those calls. And the next item we want to be able to do is actually obtain all but the last one. And the reason why we want to do this is because we just want to obtain the information that's relevant to the actual script that's being executed, and not the actual logging logic. So what we're going to do is say call stack equals stack, and then -1 dot dot basically does start from -1 to a particular place, and in this case we're going to do minus stack dot length -1, and this will obtain us the right list of objects that we need from the actual stack array, so that we can obtain the proper function list of function calls that are being made that are relevant just to our script. And then we're going to create empty variable, and this is actually going to contain the string representation of all of those frame names separated by a pipe. And this is just so it's easier for us to actually provide some output to the end user. That makes a little bit more sense. So now, since we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to do another for each statement. And in this case, we'll call the variable frame again. Since it's a new version of the variable, it will just be replaced. And we're going to go ahead and specify call stack, and in this case we're actually iterating over that list of the call stack variables, and press enter here. And what we want to do is we actually want to make sure that we're not getting any functions that we shouldn't care about. So in this particular case, we're going to say as long as the frame is not logged to file, because we don't want to actually have to log anything that's related to log to file. And we also don't want to log anything where the frame is equal to something like script block. So actually we can keep this. This shouldn't be a problem for us. This will be also a way for us to be able to tell if it's actually coming from a log file, or if it's coming from a particular function. So now we have that logic, and what we want to be able to do is say, let's start building that function call variable, and we're going to append to that function call variable every frame that as long as it wasn't logged to file, and we're going to also append the pipe variable to it. So this way it actually will say after each function call it's going to actually give us a pipe, and it will go through that list and build that array, build that string for us actually. So this is the next step is actually a very important step, and this is a way for us to be able to obtain the line number information. And this is very helpful, especially if you have very large functions and you want to know exactly what line number is executing and was actually trying to log. So in order to do this, what we want to do is we want to actually create what's called a line array. And what we're doing here is we actually are getting our trace or our call stack variable. We're gonna get the script line number itself that was executing. And the script line number actually is a string that comes back with a list of and the sequence of every single line number that was executed in order to get us to this point. So what we want to be able to do, however, is we don't care about the first portion or the last portion. We just care about the portion of the call stack that was relevant to our specific function call. And you'll see that later. So what we're wanting to do here is we're going to actually split this particular string by a space. And this will actually give us an array of all the different line numbers that were executed. The next operation we're going to actually do is we're going to now actually do the skip operation. So now that we have the array, we want to skip the first portion and skip the last item in that list. And we do this by doing line array. We're going to do select dash skip. And we're going to skip the first item. And then we're going to do select skip last. So this is going to actually skip from the back end of the array, and we're going to skip the last one. And this gives us the middle portion of all the different line numbers that need to be executed. And the last item is we're actually going to populate the line variable with the actual combined list of all of the values in between. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say line array, and we're going to do join. And we're going to join again by the space. You could also, join by a semicolon or colon or anything you really feel like for your formatting functionality. So now that we have that, we want to be able to actually get or trim the portions of the actual function call variable so that we don't have any kind of spaces or any characters that are unwanted. And we do this by doing function call substring, and we're going to specify 0, function call length -1. And then at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to actually put all of this into a variable that we're just going to output through the write output function. So I'll call this output equals, and then we'll do date just like we did below, and we're going to replace that. We're going to specify type. We're going to also specify the function call, and we're going to specify the line. And the last one is going to be the actual message. And we're going to actually wrap all of this into a set of quotes. And at the end, we're going to replace this string here with the actual variable. So let's see what this actually did for us. So let's go ahead and do logging. And as you can see, the information that we actually obtained here is the date timestamp. We obtained the actual type of a message it is, so in this case it's info. Then it actually showed us that it's a script block, and it came from the logging.ps1 file itself, and you can see that the line number that was actually used is line 37. Now, how useful is this? And in this particular scenario, it's not very useful because it's coming from the same file. But imagine a scenario where you actually have another file in this folder that's called utilities. And what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to actually import your logging PS1 file. And let's say we create another function that takes in a parameter, let's say do something. And let's say you want to be able to I don't know, get date, maybe get process information, and at the end you want to be able to write the information out. So I'm gonna do let's see, log to file message, and the message is going to be dt. Well, in this case, actually, I shouldn't need to do dt because I actually have that in my file. But let's say we want to be able to specify a process count that we actually got back. And what we're going to do here is we're going to actually do process. Well, let's put that into a variable equals and let's see what information actually gives us. And if I go ahead and actually import the utilities PS1, it doesn't execute anything because it simply imported the function. But let's say I go ahead and call the test function method and press enter. And you can actually see that the information that we obtained, it's telling us that it executed at a particular time. In this case, it actually didn't give us the type because we didn't specify type. And what we can do here is we can actually fix that in a function by saying equals info. And if I go ahead and actually run this again, let me import the utilities file again, test function, and you can see now it actually came in as a default info. It tells you that it came from a script block and it's coming from a test function, and the actual line number that's executing is line number 7. But and it actually gives us the actual message itself. So let's imagine a scenario where you want to be able to do a nested call to be able to actually write the message here. So let's say we're going to actually go ahead and call this test function from another function. So test function, and message is going to be another message, or I should say another function. And instead of me outputting this information, I am going to actually go ahead and say message from another function, and I'll say message. And I'm going to go ahead and actually remove these lines here, and let's see what happens. So now if I actually import this utilities here and call another function, you'll see that it actually came back and told me that here's a date timestamp, the type of a message. It came from a script block because I'm actually running it from within console. It told me that it started at another function level, and it then called the test function. And you can see that the line numbers are actually now changing. So you can see that the actual call stack, and we can actually do this in reverse as well. Actually, we should do this in reverse because you could see that the information came from line number 9, and then it went to line number 5, and then it actually outputted the message. So you should be able to easily actually reverse this this logic right here to be able to do this in reverse order, and it will actually give you the correct output. So this is kind of a basic logging function or utility logging script that you can actually write, be able to utilize in your scripts as well. And then you can turn this into a PowerShell module that makes it easy for you to be able to log any information you want to be able to log in your scripts. So in future videos that I'm going to try to do some PowerShell functionality. We're going to show you how to actually create a PowerShell module, be able to test the module, as well as be able to call it and also install it, and where do you need to install it on the machine to be able to use it from either your normal PowerShell window or from other functions that you want to be able to use. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave your comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and provide me feedback if you'd like to see any other videos. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.